My brother called a family meeting at my parents' house the week after my grandmother's funeral, announced he was taking her lake house as his share of the estate, and told me my years of caregiving were not a financial contribution. What he didn't know was that Grandma and I had spent a very specific afternoon together, 14 months earlier, sitting at her kitchen table with her attorney on speakerphone, doing something he would never see coming. We are always curious. Where in the world are you watching from today? Drop it in the comments. We read every single one. The smell of antiseptic never fully leaves you. Even now, months later, I'll catch a whiff of something clean and sharp. A hospital lobby, a bottle of rubbing alcohol. And I'm right back in Grandma's bedroom on Clover Lane, adjusting the pillow behind her back while she tried to tell me something important and kept losing the thread halfway through. I'm 31. I'm a paralegal at a mid-sized firm in Columbus, Ohio. My job is essentially reading things other people don't want to read and finding the detail that matters. I am very good at it. My brother, who is 4 years older and has spent the better part of a decade being very confident and very wrong about everything, has never once asked what I actually do for a living. His name is not important to this story in the way you might think. What matters is what he represents. The person who wasn't there, who chose not to be there, and who then showed up to collect. Grandma, her name was Frances, and she was the sharpest woman I have ever known. Was diagnosed with early-stage vascular dementia 3 years before she died. She didn't go quietly into that fog. She fought it. She did crosswords until her hands cramped. She recorded voice memos to herself on an old flip phone my cousin set up for her. She kept a legal pad on her nightstand with the date written at the top every morning, just to prove to herself she still knew it. When it became clear she couldn't live alone on Clover Lane anymore, my parents had what I can only describe as a collective moment of convenient unavailability. My dad had his back surgery scheduled. My mom was dealing with a lot. My brother, who lives 40 minutes away in a house with a finished basement and a guest room, said he and his wife simply didn't have the bandwidth. I had bandwidth. I had a 1-bedroom apartment and a job I could partially work remotely, and a grandmother who, when I was 9 years old, taught me to play gin rummy and told me that the women in our family were always smarter than anyone gave them credit for. She said it like a warning and a gift at the same time. So I moved in. Not permanently, not officially. I kept paying my rent for the first 4 months, holding on to the idea that this was temporary, that someone else would step up. No one did. Eventually, I sublet my apartment, put my things in a storage unit, and made Clover Lane my life. I learned things I never expected to know. How to check her blood pressure at the same time every morning and log it in a notebook for the cardiologist. How to make soft scrambled eggs the way she liked, with too much butter and a little cream cheese stirred in. How to redirect a conversation when she got frightened and confused at night. How to say, "You're safe, you're home, I'm right here," without letting her hear the fear in my own voice. My brother visited 4 times in 2 years. Each visit lasted approximately 90 minutes. He always arrived with flowers, the expensive grocery store kind, already wilting, and left before dinner. My parents came more often, but not to help. They came to update each other on what the doctors had said, to have opinions about her medications, to ask me whether I'd considered a memory care facility, and then to leave and let me handle whatever came next. Grandma knew. She always knew. On her good days, she would look at me with her pale blue eyes gone sharp and say things like, "They're waiting for me to go, sweetheart. Make sure I've already taken care of you before I do." That was not a metaphor. Frances was a woman of action. 14 months before she died, on a Tuesday afternoon when she was having one of her clearer stretches, she asked me to bring her address book from the top drawer of her bureau. She found the number she wanted, dialed it herself, and told me to sit down. The call was to her estate attorney, a woman who had handled Grandma's affairs for over a decade. What followed was a 2-hour conversation that I was present for but only partially understood at the time. Documents were discussed, decisions were made. I signed something as a witness. Grandma told me afterward that everything was arranged, that I shouldn't worry, and that she wanted soft scrambled eggs. I made the eggs. I didn't ask too many questions. I trusted her. She died on a Thursday morning in April. Quietly, in her own bed, which is what she had wanted. I was the one who called the funeral home. I was the one who sat with her until they arrived. I was the one who found her flick phone on the nightstand and pressed play on the last voice memo, which was just her saying my name, and then a long pause, and then the eggs were very good today. I kept it together through the funeral. I kept it together through the reception at my parents' house, where people I barely recognized ate finger sandwiches and told me I had been such a dedicated granddaughter. I kept it together through the week after, when I went back to work and answered emails and pretended the world was a normal place, and then my brother called the family meeting. It was a Saturday, my parents' living room. My brother and his wife sat on one side of the coffee table. My parents sat on the couch. Someone had put out a cheese plate which felt obscene. My brother was talking before I'd even sat down. He had printed out something, actual printed pages, which he'd organized with a binder clip, and he was holding them like they were evidence of his own reasonableness. "I've been doing some research," he said, "on the estate. The will hasn't even been filed with the probate court yet," I said. "The attorney is handling it." "Right, but the lake house." He set the papers on the coffee table and turned them toward me. "It's the primary asset. Conservatively, it's worth about $420,000. And I think we can all agree that it makes more sense for it to go to one person than to be split and either sold or tied up in some kind of co-ownership situation." I looked at the papers. They were printouts from a real estate website, Zillow comparables for Grandma's lake house. "You printed Zillow listings," I said. "They give you a fair market sense of you printed Zillow listings and brought them to a family meeting the week after your grandmother's funeral." His wife put a hand on his arm. He didn't stop. "The point is," he said, "that the house should go to me. I'm the oldest. I have a family. You're single. You live in an apartment. You don't have any use for a lake house. And honestly," he paused here, as if what came next required courage, "the caregiving thing. I know it sounds harsh, but that wasn't a financial contribution. That was a personal choice you made. It doesn't give you extra claim on the estate." The cheese plate was right there on the coffee table. Brie and some kind of hard cheddar and a small bunch of grapes. I looked at it for a moment. "Did anyone else want to weigh in?" I asked. I looked at my parents. My mom looked at her hands. My dad said, "Your brother has a point about the logistics." "He printed Zillow comps," I said again. "And he's telling me that 2 years of my life don't count." I stood up. "I need some air." I walked out to the backyard. It was cold. Ohio in late April is still cold. And I stood on the patio and called the estate attorney. She answered on the second ring. I told her what had just happened. There was a pause on her end, and then she said something that I will remember for the rest of my life. "Sweetheart," she said, "your grandmother was very specific. I think you should come to my office on Monday. Bring your brother if he wants to come. But make sure he understands that the conversation he's trying to have with you in that living room is already over." I went back inside. I sat back down. I said, "Monday, the attorney's office. You should come." My brother looked at the Zillow printouts and then at me. "That's fine," he said, as if he were doing me a favor. "That's totally fine. To understand why Monday changed everything, you have to understand what those 2 years on Clover Lane actually looked like. Not the version where I made a personal choice, but the version that happened. I gave up a promotion. My firm offered me an associate position that would have required full-time in office hours. I turned it down and stayed at my remote-eligible paralegal role, which paid less and had no upward path for as long as I was in Grandma's house. I calculated it once. Late at night, when I couldn't sleep, the salary difference over 2 years, plus what I spent on her groceries when her account was low at the end of the month, plus the gas for the medical appointments, plus the 3 months of overlap when I was paying both my subletter's share and the storage unit fees while things got sorted out. It was not a small number. But that math wasn't even the main thing. The main thing was what I watched happen to her. The way a brilliant woman, a woman who had worked as a bookkeeper for 30 years, who had her own small investment portfolio, who could still beat anyone at gin rummy until the last few months, slowly lost her ability to hold on to herself. And the way I held on to her anyway, every single day while my brother sent flowers. He had not called her. I found that out going through her flip phone after she died. I was looking for contacts to notify, and I checked the call log. He had called twice in 2 years. Both times she had answered. Both times it lasted under 3 minutes. Twice. On Monday morning, I put on the blazer I wear to court hearings and drove to the attorney's office downtown. My brother arrived in his SUV right behind me. He brought his wife again, and he had a legal pad this time instead of the Zillow printouts, which I suppose was progress. The attorney's name was Beverly, and she had the particular calm of someone who has spent 40 years watching families surprise themselves. She shook everyone's hand, offered coffee, and then opened a folder on her desk. Frances updated her estate plan 14 months ago, Beverly said. The update was comprehensive. I want to walk you through it carefully. My brother clicked his pen. His wife wrote the date at the top of the legal pad. The lake house, Beverly said, is not part of the probate estate. My brother looked up. Frances transferred it into a revocable trust 18 months ago. That trust became irrevocable at her death. The sole beneficiary of the trust is her granddaughter. Beverly looked at me briefly, then back at the file. That's you. Wait, my brother said. The liquid assets, her savings and investment accounts, total approximately $280,000. Per the terms of the trust and the will, those assets are also directed entirely to her granddaughter, with a specific notation documenting the rationale. What rationale? My brother said. His voice had gone flat. Beverly turned a page. Frances left a written statement. She was very clear that she wanted it read aloud at this meeting. She looked at my brother, then at me. I'll read it. The statement was 2 paragraphs. The first paragraph said, in Frances's exact words I recognized because I had heard her say versions of them at the kitchen table, that she had watched carefully over the last several years, and that she knew exactly who had been present. She said that love was not something you expressed only when it was convenient, and that presents mattered more than flowers, and that her granddaughter had given 2 years of her life without being asked and without complaint. The second paragraph said that she had also noticed, with great clarity, the financial pressure her family had placed on her over the years, and that she had kept a record. Beverly turned another page. Attached to the will is a document Frances titled her Honest Ledger. My brother's pen stopped clicking. Beverly set the ledger on the desk and turned it so we could all see. It was a yellow legal pad. I recognized it immediately, the same kind she kept on her nightstand, with handwriting that got shakier toward the bottom but remained legible throughout. Dates, amounts, and notations going back 12 years. 2013, loan to son for truck purchase, $8,000, not repaid. 2015, loan for home renovation, $15,000, not repaid. 2017, credit card debt cleared, $6,200, not repaid. 2019, cash for investment opportunity, $22,000, not repaid. There were 12 entries. The total, including a note at the bottom in Beverly's handwriting indicating she had calculated interest at the applicable federal rate, was just over $74,000. My brother had gone very still. Your mother's will, Beverly said, looking at my parents now, includes a clause requiring that any outstanding loans to family members be settled from their share of the residual estate before distribution. Since the primary assets have already passed to the trust, there is no residual estate to distribute. She paused. What this means practically is that any inheritance claim you might have made is offset by the debt recorded here. The estate, as structured, owes you nothing. The room was quiet for a long moment. Those were gifts, my dad said. His voice sounded unfamiliar, like he was hearing it himself for the first time. She gave those to us. She documented them as loans, Beverly said, with dates and amounts. She was a bookkeeper for 30 years. She knew what she was doing. My brother set down his pen. She was confused. In the last few years, you can't just, the trust was established 18 months ago, Beverly said evenly. At that time, I conducted a capacity assessment, as I do with all clients making significant changes to their estate plans. She passed without difficulty. She was clear, she was specific, and she was consistent across 3 separate meetings. She didn't tell me, my brother said. He looked at me. Did you know? I knew she made changes, I said. I didn't know what they were. That wasn't entirely true. I had known enough. I had known what she meant when she said everything was arranged, but I genuinely hadn't known the scope of it, the ledger, the debt clause, until Beverly started reading. I need a minute, my brother said. He stood up and walked out of the conference room. His wife stayed, which I thought was interesting. The 4 of us sat there. Beverly, me, my parents, my brother's wife, in the kind of silence that happens after something true has been said. My mom was crying very quietly into a tissue she produced from somewhere. My dad was looking at the ledger. He reached across the desk and picked it up without asking, which I thought Beverly might object to, but she just watched him. He read through it slowly. I watched his face. There was a moment somewhere in the middle of the list, maybe the 2017 entry or the 2019 one, where something shifted. He set it back down on the desk. She kept this the whole time, he said. Not a question. She did, Beverly said. He looked at me. I didn't know what he was looking for. I didn't look away. My brother came back. He sat down. He looked like someone had let the air out of him. Is there any path to contesting this? He asked Beverly. You're welcome to consult your own attorney, Beverly said. My professional opinion is that the trust is airtight. Francis was thorough. He looked at me again. You knew. You had to have known. I knew she loved me, I said, and I knew I was there when it mattered. He left without saying anything else. His wife paused at the door and looked back at me for a moment. She looked like she wanted to say something. She didn't. She followed him out. My parents stayed. My mom had stopped crying. She was holding the tissue in her hands and looking at it. I didn't know about the ledger, she said. I want you to know that. I believed her. That was the strange thing. I actually believed her. My mother had her flaws, and not being there was one of them. But I didn't think she had known Francis was writing everything down. She saw everything, I said. She always did. My dad nodded once. That was all. The next few weeks were ugly in the way that legal and financial things are ugly. Not dramatic, just slow and grinding. My brother called once late at night and told me I manipulated an old woman with dementia. I held the phone away from my ear while he talked. When he was finished, I said that Grandma had passed every capacity test her attorney administered and that I was going to hang up now, and I did. My parents' situation turned out to be more complicated than even I had realized. The loans and the ledger were the visible part. Beverly, at a follow-up meeting she requested, told me she had cross-referenced the dates and amounts with some records Francis had kept in a separate envelope, bank withdrawal confirmations, handwritten notes, and that she believed my parents had, on at least 2 occasions, asked Grandma for money without my dad's full knowledge. Not forged signatures, but something murkier, transactions that happened during a stretch when Grandma's documentation had gaps. Beverly said it wasn't enough to constitute fraud, but that I should be aware. I sat with that for a long time. What do you do with something like that? What do you do when the truth is that your grandmother was protecting herself from multiple directions at once, and she still managed to do it quietly enough that no one knew? I decided to do what she would have done. I had Beverly draft a formal letter to my parents acknowledging the outstanding balance in the ledger and proposing a structured repayment arrangement. Not aggressive, not punitive, just real, documented. A plan that treated them like adults who could handle the truth of what they owed. They agreed. I don't think they had much choice, but I also think a part of them, my mother especially, felt a kind of relief at having it named. The fog of unspoken debt has its own weight. Sometimes a ledger is also a mercy. I don't know what to say about my brother. He is still 4 years older than me and still very confident. We have not spoken since the night he called me. I don't know if we will. I think about Grandma's voice memos sometimes. Just my name and a pause, and the eggs were very good today. And I think she would tell me not to spend too much energy on people who couldn't be present when it counted. She would be right. The lake house needed work. I went up for the first time in May, 3 weeks after the estate was settled, and just walked through it by myself. It smelled like her. A specific mix of the cedar closet off the hallway, and the lemon dish soap she always bought, and something else, something warm and specific to her that I cannot name. I sat on the back porch for a long time and watched the lake. I'm not going to sell it. I know that people will think that's impractical. A woman alone, a lake house 40 minutes from the city, property taxes and maintenance and all the rest of it. I don't care what's practical. Grandma didn't build a ledger for 30 years so I could be practical. She built it so I could be free. I took a leave of absence from work and spent the first summer there. I brought my laptop and my case files and worked from the kitchen table. I planted things in the garden. I don't know much about gardening, but I bought a book and I figured it out. I made soft scrambled eggs with too much butter on Sunday mornings, and I ate them at the table by the window, and I watched the light change on the water. My cousin texted me in July. She's the one who had set up Grandma's flip phone. She said she'd heard what happened and that she thought it was wonderful and that Grandma had always said I was the one who actually listened. I saved that text. I put it in the same folder on my phone where I kept the voice memo. In August, I got a call from a woman I didn't recognize. She introduced herself as the new office manager at a small nonprofit in Columbus, an organization that provides free legal guidance to seniors dealing with estate and caregiving issues. Beverly had referred her to me. She wanted to know if I'd be interested in doing some part-time consulting work, applying my paralegal skills to the specific tangle of situations that arose when elderly people didn't have the right documentation, when families made assumptions, when the gaps in legal protection led to exactly the kinds of things that had almost happened to Frances. I said yes. I drove back to Columbus 2 days a week, and the other days I worked from the lake house, and I learned more in those 3 months than I had in 5 years at the firm. I don't think of what happened as revenge exactly. I know that's what it looks like from the outside. The quiet one wins. The ones who showed up get nothing. Someone built a trap and let it spring. But that framing gives me too much credit, and Grandma not enough. She was the one who sat at her kitchen table with her attorney on a Tuesday afternoon and made sure her love was legally binding. She was the one who kept the ledger, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. She knew exactly what her money meant, and she knew exactly who had earned it. All I did was show up. Every day for 2 years I showed up. She taught me that was enough. And she was right. She was always right. And I will spend the rest of my life trying to be the kind of person who deserves what she left me.